Joining us on the show right now, the director of Cold in July and also the director of the Hap and Leonard TV series that is currently in production, Mr. Jim Mickle. Thank you, Jim, for joining us on our show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I also have to thank you so much for giving us such a great film. I mean, Cold in July was in both mine and Nick's top movies of 2014. We did an episode not too long ago, our top 3 films of 2014. We both picked Cold in July.
Awesome.
Yeah, man, it's such a great film. What was the toughest part of adapting Joe Lansdale's work, though?
I mean, the practicality-wise, it was the time it took to get it made. Really, was the toughest part. We originally read it and wanted to do it years ago. This is like 2006 or 2007, and then it just took a long time to get it going. I think people were always interested, but it took them a while to get them sort of over the hump and get people to commit. And when it finally did, things moved rather quickly, and then we actually got it done pretty quickly. But that was the toughest part, practicality-wise. Creatively, it was interesting. So I think we started off. we're massive fans of Lansdale's stuff, and I think really wanted to get it right, and really felt sort of a duty to be faithful and get everything done the right way. And I think there were times where we sort of had to learn that balance of like how slavish you can be to something, and where you sort of have to take some liberties in order to make it translate to a screen, I guess. And that's something we're still, playing around with now.
Yeah, right.
Now, at the beginning of Cold in July, Michael C. Hall's character shoots an intruder, and that sets the whole rest of the film in motion, everything that happens.
Mm-hmm.
You yourself, do you think you could go ahead and shoot an intruder if someone came into your house?
I don't know. I have no idea. I guess you never really know until that happens, or you're put in that situation. I think that was what was kind of cool about it. I think that was what made it universal in a way. So I think it speaks to everybody in a different way, and sort of makes themselves have to answer that question in some way or another. I had a weird experience right before we shot with a groundhog that kept eating vegetables out of our garden, and when I went to get a trap, the guy said, "Nah, the only way you can do it is to shoot him," and I wound up. This was maybe like a couple weeks before production, I think, and I wound up thinking like, this is kind of that position that this guy's in, kind of understand what that's like, and I ended up going through and doing it, and it scarred me for life. So I don't know if it was a human being. I don't know if I could.
Now, the third act of the film, I mean, it's just visceral. It's intense. It's just, honestly, and we were known for ass kissing on our show. We bring people on that we love, and we kiss their ass. It was seriously just flawless filmmaking there. I mean, it was just really great. Can you just briefly take us into that whole ending sequence and just what went into the planning and execution of that? Just so great.
Yeah, thanks. It's cool because I think, we've done 3 movies before, and we had handled, we had to do sort of set pieces before, and I think, in a way, this was sort of us finally realizing like how much time we needed, how much effort. This is the first time we really had we've had a stunt coordinator on the last 3 movies, but usually it's kind of like, we'll be able to afford a day, and we have to sort of fudge stuff here and there, figure out how to shoot around a stunt. This is the first time that we were able to sort of say, like, look, really the whole movie is not much going on stunt-wise or action-wise beforehand. It all sort of builds to this moment, and this moment sort of has to work because the whole movie culminates in this in a way. So we brought the stunt, we brought Tony Vincent, an awesome stunt coordinator, in early, and we sort of walked through and said, we're not doing monsters this time. This is real. This is the guy walking into a place and getting into a shootout with some 80s, rednecks, and what are all the fun things that we can sort of do. We found a great house that it was actually a giant old sort of mansion, hotel, church, school building that had been abandoned for a while. So we could go in and treat it. I think the creative approach is like make it like a fun house almost.
Right.
Like,
absolutely. Yeah.
Like sort of like a haunted house, when you go through, and like each room was sort of a different color and different scenes and different things going on, and then and really it was about sort of putting you in Michael's shoes. That was really the biggest thing there, was this guy who's sort of been unprepared his whole life for this, having this opportunity. And then we spent 3 days shooting it, and it was awesome. It was the first time we got to use real like squibs and any kind of pyrotechnics at all. So it was for the first time it was getting to actually play with those things instead of trying to figure out how to do it without those things. And taking the time to get the stunts right, and it was a blast. It was amazing.
Yeah, it's so awesome.
Had a great time.
So awesome.
Did you always have Don Johnson in mind for Jim Bob Luke?
No, it took a while to figure that out. Originally there was another actor who's also very, very, very cool, who was attached to that for a very long time, and then and during the many incarnations of it as it came along, he ended up not being available when we went. So all of a sudden it was sort of, for the first time, really having to think about like who do we think here, and it was Linda, our producer, came in and said, what about him after seeing Django Unchained? Found it down, and then it was like, whoa, that's perfect. It's kind of, once that idea kicked in, it was like it couldn't be anybody else. And then I met him, and he was like exactly like that in person, like in real life. And it was, perfect. Whatever we got to do, let's make that happen.
I guess Sam Shepard too is probably another one of those actors, the character of Russell. Just the film itself just speaks so much about fatherhood and father figures, and both Don Johnson and Sam Shepard, their characters they're just critical to the development of Michael C. Hall's character in a way. What was the process of getting Sam and finding him as Russell?
I think we were thinking about who Russell would be, because we had to sort of bend him a little bit from the book, and I only mean that in that, in the book he's a very talkative character. He has a lot of he has a lot of Lansdalean dialogue, and he reveals a lot of stuff through that. And as drafts went on, as the scripts went on, he became more of a sort of an iconic, sort of quiet Marlboro Man kind of a character. So he kept changing a little bit as we went along, yet we didn't want to lose the sense that this is a guy who thought about things deeply. It was just that in our movie, he reacts a little bit more through violence and action and less than speech. So we sort of wanted somebody that would have all the scary sort of attributes, but still have a thinking man, I think, quality, and that felt like Sam. He's able to, without saying anything, convey a ton, which is, ironic for somebody who's sort of known for the spoken word and is so fascinated by it. And then it was also really great because, I think we'd left a lot of, the role was very blank on the page, but it was because there was a lot to sort of be read into it, and we didn't want him to constantly sort of state how he felt. And that was tough to get right on the page, because people would read and say like, oh, I don't quite get this guy, and he makes these big decisions, I don't quite get it. And we were sort of kind of try to stick to our guns and say, the right actor is going to come in and find this and really know what it's supposed to be and be able to fill in a lot of those blanks. And right away, first meeting with Sam, I came in and he had like every page of the script was just covered in notes. It was like old-fashioned, old school, actor approach. And I started trying to talk about those things, and instantly he was like, nah, we don't need to talk about it. Like, I know. And it was just so cool to finally have somebody sort of like an actor sort of respond back. It's like, I know exactly what I'm doing. I know exactly what this is, So that just, again, felt like, oh, perfect fit.
How did you and the screenwriter Nick Damici begin working together?
I went to NYU film school, and at some point, I guess like junior year maybe, I was working on a friend's film as a grip on another guy's film named Jack Lilburn, who was making a cool senior film, and Nick was the lead in that film. I think we shot for maybe like 2 weeks in Connecticut somewhere, and I was just on set just saying like, who the hell is this guy? How did you get this? He was playing like an ex-con turned like kindergarten school bus driver character, And I kept just being like, Jack, like, how do you find this guy? This guy's amazing, you know? He's actually feels like one of these like 70s Charles Bronson tough guys, you know? And then we stayed in cabins out in the woods. His cabin was next to my cabin, and we get home, and I'd be a little bit bored, and I'd look over, and he was like on a rocking chair, just totally playing the part, like literally the guitar in his hand, and like sipping brandy, dog next to him, and then we just started talking, and we had a lot of the same sort of weird tastes, and both bonded over like I Am Legend, the Richard Matheson book, and just like, oh, this guy's, you know. And at the time, I was writing stuff, but I wasn't really all that excited about it. I all sort of felt, I don't know, I could never really get the hang of writing and sort of having the discipline for it. I always overthought stuff. And then he started sending me some scripts that he was writing, and it sort of filled in a lot of the blanks of stuff that I couldn't figure out. And I started giving him notes. He started playing with those notes and coming back to me with stuff. So it kind of developed over the course of a year or two like that, before we actually tried to do anything. And then ultimately that became Mulberry Street, and kind of grew from there.
It's awesome, man. And
Yeah.
I'm probably going to give you the toughest question you've ever faced before, so I hope you're ready for it.
Okay.
I know that you said that Dario Argento and Coen Brothers are an inspiration for Cold in July. I'm a huge Coen Brothers fan myself. What is your favorite Coen Brothers film?
I think Blood Simple. You know, I would say between that and No Country for Old Men. Obviously, both of those have giant influence on this.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, you know, Blood Simple was the first thing I saw. You know, it was the first thing, when I first fell in love with movies, I was watching a lot of horror movies. Anything on VHS I'd go to the store and get, and then reading whatever I could read about those things. And I was sort of obsessed with horror movies. And when I started to sort of like open my mind up beyond that genre, it was through the Coen Brothers, because at that time I was obsessed with Sam Raimi and Evil Dead, and that sort of naturally led down the sort of family tree of like the offshoot into the Coen Brothers. And at the time it was Blood Simple, and that was, in a way, it was my sort of introduction into like the rural noir or the southern noir, and also into the just kind of go do it kind of movie, you know. And so that was always a little bit of an ear marker sort of in my sort of falling in love with movies. And then once, you know, we started getting, you know, further into production on this and heading towards it, you know, going back and rewatching it was just like falling back in love with that all over. So it sort of holds like a, you know, sentimental spot for me, I guess.
I got to be perfectly honest. I got to thank you so much for bringing Hap and Leonard to television. It's my favorite book series. It is my favorite book
great.
series, and I'm so friggin' excited about this. What can you tell us about what to expect? Is it going to be based on the books, original stories?
Yes, and yes.
All right, that's
yeah.
Cool.
So we're starting. You know, we're working on the script now. We just moved into individual episodes. Let's see, what can I say? It's 6 episodes, first season.
Right.
Evan Katz, you know him from E.L. Katz from Cheap Thrills.
Oh, wow.
He's co-writing with us, so it's Nick, Evan, and myself. And,
That's one of Nick's other favorite films.
Oh, hell yeah.
That's great.
Yeah,
we love that
good.
movie. We love that movie, and I, you know, we were kind of friendly before, and then felt like, oh, this is like the perfect, you know, we need somebody that gets the humor and sort of the intensity and the sort of outlandishness. So he came in December. We've been working together, and now he's out working on the draft right now of one episode. Nick is working on one, and it's all coming together. And so Joe's very heavily involved, you know, creatively. He reads stuff, he's going back, he's doing dialogue passes, which is great. You know, that's his that's something that he really wants to make sure we get right, as do we. And Ellen Chenoweth is our casting director, who did No Country for Old Men and a lot of the sort of the second half of the Coen Brothers' careers. She's casting the show. She started last week, and we're going to start looking at sort of specifics this week. We have some ideas, but all about trying to find availability and all that sort of thing. And we'll be shooting late April, will start shooting, and I believe they'll start airing the top of 2016.
That's great. We look forward to just continuing talking about it, and you know, once you start casting, and this is super exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. It's, you know, I had the same thing. You know, that was something when I first started reading Joe's stuff. You know, you sort of fall into those books, and they also hold a sort of a sentimental spot as well. So finally, to you know, be tasked, I guess, with like what that's going to look like for people just outside of the books, or people that are going to know it from television, that sort of thing, is a big responsibility. But we're really excited. So far, really good.
Now, are you afraid that working on a TV series like that's going to limit the amount of feature films you can work on, or is it something that you knew going into? It's like, if I'm going to do this, then you know.
You know, both. You know, I think there is a little bit of like stepping away from movies, but at the same time, I have to be honest. I'm like, you know, all of our, I guess, releases in movies have been sort of bittersweet in a way. You know, I think we're always like so happy the movies that we made. You know, we've done like more festivals than I ever thought in my lifetime I'd be able to play, and you know, critically they do really well. You know, audiences really like them. But it's always been a little bit of heartbreaking, I gotta say, each time that like the releases, we just don't get the sort of exposure that we want.
Right.
In a way, I think that's what kind of works for the movies, because they become these sort of like undiscovered things that people find in their own way. But it is frustrating. And on the other side, you know, looking back, it's like most of the things that I watch now are leaning towards television and away from movies, and I think movies themselves get a little bit less interesting creatively. And so I feel like on the one hand, yes, it's a little bit tough, because it's probably right when we could hop and do like, you know, a very cool movie, instead of stepping away from that. But on the other hand, I think television is so exciting right now, and really is like a big movement, and there's a freedom there that I think is really interesting. And so to be hopefully at the beginning of that wave, you know, not at the end of it, but to hopefully be sort of getting involved in that while it's still evolving, I think is the most exciting thing creatively. So
yeah, I mean, TV is going through a great, you know, time period right now. You just had Breaking Bad wrapping up. You got the Fargo season was fantastic. You know,
amazing.
True Detective. You have all of these shows that are just they're like movies themselves, and just kind of broken up and over a season long. And I think it's a cool time to do it.
I think any one of those, if they were movies, I think they probably would kind of be a little bit like Cold July in a way. I think, you know, I guess I'm saying they wouldn't have quite the audience exposure and sort of widespread audience, I guess. I think if they were movies, there's something about the way that Breaking Bad was able to sort of sit with people for a while before they finally came around to it. And I think that's something that, you know, and more as you try to get into bigger and bigger movies, it's all about like making that immediate sort of splash, and making like the biggest, you know, everyone's chasing the same 3 or 4 movie stars, and it's nice to be able to just say like, hey, what if we just told a story that's a cool story, and told it at the pace that feels right for the story, not necessarily, you know, the movie and all that sort of stuff. It's interesting to get to play around that, you know. It's exciting.
Fantastic. And we'll wrap this up now. Just got to say once again, the Cold July, it's a great film. When I saw the trailer for it, I just got pulled back to a Michael Mann 80s kind of feel. the soundtrack, the look, it felt like a movie that was going to kick me in the gut, and it didn't disappoint. We tell everyone that we know to watch this film. Really excited about Hap and Leonard as well, and so appreciate the time that you took with us today, Jim. Thanks a lot.
Thank
you very much.
Thanks, guys. Thanks. Look forward to Hap and Leonard soon.
I can't wait.
Yeah. Alrighty, thanks.
Thanks a lot, Jim. Good luck. Bye.